if you're Ryan Poles and you're thinking about all these things that are available there in front of you, and trade down is the most common thing because of the number one pick and the value that it can get, how far down are you willing to go? What is the lowest you would feel comfortable as Ryan Poles trading in this particular draft? Speaks, you can either give me your answer straight up or think about some of the factors and the variables that you'd be weighing in here.
I've been thinking about the factors and the variables since you proposed this as one of our 3 p.m. Shane and Chris dig into the draft segment to be named items. And here's the factor for me. I don't want to come out of this draft without the very best prospect, theoretically, of course, at a position that matters. So, look, if you're staying at 1, I could get the best pass rusher, Will Anderson, or the best 3 technique, Jalen Carter. If I go down to 2, I should still be able to do that. If I go down to 4, I should still be able to do that, theoretically, because quarterbacks will jump up.
I think 4 is the lowest you can go
and get one of those 2 guys.
Where you can guarantee you can get one of those guys. Maybe you could go down to 5 or 6, but 4 is the lowest you could go where you'd guarantee it. Because if someone's trading up to 1, they're taking a quarterback, and Houston at 2 is taking a quarterback.
Right.
So then if there's Carter and Anderson, then that means you'd get the leftover of them at 3 or 4.
If Julio Jones was in this draft, I would be then thinking about how low could I go to get that premium wide receiver number 1.
Why you mention Julio Jones is there's not many examples of teams trading a ton of capital to move into the top 10 to draft non-quarterbacks, but Atlanta moved up from 27 to 6 to go up and get Julio Jones.
Because he was clearly the guy, and they wanted that big-bodied number 1, and they got him, and that proved to be right. So, but D tackle and D edge are not the only premium positions. So corner, like, would I accept coming out of this draft as a Bear fan with the number 1 corner in this draft, or the number 1 left tackle in this draft? Somebody I could plug in, and maybe it's Skoronski at Northwestern, but I don't know that there's any other positions that I would consider, right? And as we talk about premium positions, I don't think there's a wide receiver that makes sense. So I'm left thinking tackle, maybe corner, 3 technique, D edge.
Right. So that's all logical. I think that wide receiver is a premium position, and I think it's clearly a huge need. I don't think, based on what the experts say, that Jackson Smith-Njigba or the kid from TCU, Johnson, is the type of like surefire number 1 receiver who's going to be a superstar. If they were, I would say that's a premium enough position. But I'm with you.
Quentin Johnston from TCU.
Quentin Johnston.
6'4", 215. PFF has him as their 15th ranked prospect, and that's the first wide receiver on their board.
Right. So but again, I mean, rookie wide receivers are producing basically every year in the NFL. So you would think that if you draft that guy and you scout him correctly, most of the rookie wide receivers are hitting the last couple of years because of how well trained that position is. I'm with you. I think that what the argument would be, I have to get a great player at a premium position in this draft. Do I have conviction on someone lower than 4? And my guess would be, if you're Ryan Poles and you've got this offensive lineman background, that would be for an offensive tackle. That you would say to yourself, I'm comfortable with some of the defensive linemen that are in free agency, whether it is Javon Hargrave or Deron Payne or Draymond Jones or Yannick Njoku, like the different defensive linemen in free agency, and Flus will coach them up. My job is to protect Justin Fields, and I think I can get my left tackle of the future, Paris Johnson Jr., from Ohio State, have the Ohio State Justin Fields connection. He's a refrigerator of a man. He's a 6'6" mountain.
6'6", 310, did not allow a sack on 449 pass block snaps at Ohio State.
Played left tackle and played right guard has shown versatility, but by all accounts profiles out to a left tackle in the NFL.
I mean, PFF has him higher than Peter Skoronski.
Skoronski has
shorter arms.
Yeah, like exactly. Like very technically sound, but a couple of questionables on the tape. The assumption from what I've been reading is that Paris Johnson is going to jump Skoronski once they get to the combine.
Wow.
Is that when he gets to the combine and this guy just walks in and he fills up the door frame, everyone's gonna be like, oh, okay, well that's, you know what I mean? Like that looks like a left tackle.
And Skoronski's been trying to stretch those arms out the last month, and it's not going well.
But
from what I heard.
But also, like, the further down you trade, the more draft capital you get. And
right. So do you like is it possible?
So now let's try to put a number on it.
What, did they like Miles Murphy, the edge rusher at Clemson, enough? Like, could you like the second edge rusher enough that you're comfortable with that? Or the second tackle enough that you're comfortable with that?
That's where I personally would get squeamish. I'd want the best player in the draft at the premium position.
Me too.
But sometimes the second guy at the position drafted
is the better one.
It invites way more criticism, way more scrutiny, and it's a little smugger, for lack of a better word. It's just kind of a smug, arrogant pick. And like, oh no, I'm good. I don't need Jalen Carter. I'll take Miles Murphy. I don't need Will Anderson. I'll take Miles Murphy. Like that's a risky thing to do. You open yourself up to a lot more criticism if you don't go the consensus route. But and the further you trade down, the more draft capital you get. So like, would you trade? So we both agree we would trade to 4.
Yes.
So
I would trade to 5, which is Seattle, just in and obviously it could be end up being anybody. It could be multiple trades, etc.
Yeah, but so would you trade? I'll go to the extreme end. Would you trade to 9? Carolina needs a quarterback. Would you trade to 9?
At 9, I gotta be okay with the second ranked prospect at one of those positions. I think so. I'm a no.
Okay, To me, it would depend on how many quarterbacks you think are going in front of them. Because if you think you can get your top tackle at 9, to trade from 1 to 9, man,
you're going to get a lot of value.
You're probably getting this year. You're getting 9, next year's first, and the following year's first, in addition to their second round pick this year. You probably come away with 2 extra first round picks from a team that in theory would be starting a rookie quarterback and would have absolutely no guarantee of being any good. So if you are convinced that you can get your left tackle with the 9th pick of the draft, which obviously it'd be hard to have certainty on that, but in theory, if Ryan Poles can scout anything, he can scout it. To me, that's the lowest I would go because I think people would be blown away by the number of picks you would get back, and maybe you'd be able to get your left tackle of the future.
Let's say that you go to 9 and 4 quarterbacks, go before you. Okay, like I'm giving you. Is it Anthony Richardson, the quarterback from Florida? Like that somebody will reach and say, you know what, I need a quarterback. I'll go up and grab him.
You're saying Levis, Stroud, Young, Richardson, Carter, Anderson.
That's 6.
Is 6 guys in your scenario,
right?
And then
what? I think one of your tackles. There's 2 other picks, so it's probably going to be one of your tackles and maybe a second edge, something like that.
I mean,
could be the corner,
from Oregon, right? Christian Gonzalez, people like a lot.
Yeah.
As the top, I mean, corner is as premium of a position basically as exists in the NFL outside of quarterback.
And where it gets interesting is that there are some good teams up there. So if you're Seattle or Detroit and you're not grabbing a quarterback up there, maybe you do want a lockdown corner and you're like, look at us, we just stepped up.
Well, the Lions are probably drafting defense. So you can if the Lions are staying put, they're probably drafting defense.
Lions are at 6 and 18.
Yeah. So you if the Lions stay put at 6, you can put a defensive player in there. I would say almost assuredly. They've got a good offensive line. They had an awesome offense this year. Their defense was a travesty. I could easily see them saying, we've got a bunch of good defensive linemen, honestly. So I could see them taking a corner.
Bears are going to sign Jalen, I do believe. That's your number one corner. They've shown an ability to get production out of some other rookie corners, even undrafted ones. I don't want to settle for the best corner in this draft coming out of this when I'm at number one.
I don't think you can take a corner. I don't think you can take a corner.
So if I want the tackle, I don't feel great about getting the first tackle off the board at 9.
So you're 7.
I'm 7.
You're 7.
Because if I go to 7 and there's 3 quarterbacks taken and then the other 3, I still might miss out. I still might miss out on the tackle.
Are you a 1 to 7 or are you a 1 to 2 or a 1 to 4 and then a 2 to 7 or a 4 to 7?
I love your 1 to 2 and then 2 to 7 or your 1 to 4 and 4 to 7.
Give me a 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 7.
I mean, but in
or
theory,
1 to 4, 4 to 7. I don't care how I get to 7, but I'm not going lower than 7.
But in theory, you should be able to get the same number of draft picks, depending on. You shouldn't need extra trades necessarily.
Oh, but anxiety and time might give you another draft pick or 2. You know?
Yeah, but if you have the option to go 1 to 2 and then 2 to 4 and then 4 to 7 or 1 to 2 and 2 to 7, you're going to get more picks. Why wouldn't you want more picks?
No, but
you're going to end up at 7 anyway.
I'm saying I don't think you would necessarily get more picks. I think you'd have more certainty on draft day.
Well, how about this?
Because, like, in theory, the cost to move from 1 to 7 and then the cost to move from 4 to 7. The difference should be
on the chart.
On the chart should roughly be what it cost you to already make that first trade.
The move from 7 to 1 is going to be more than the move from 2 to 1 or 4 to 1 is what you're saying, right? It's going to cost more to move from 7 to 1. Yeah.
I'm saying no matter how you get to, say it was 7 with Vegas, if you do that by way of the 4th pick in the draft, or you just get the picks from one team,
right?
It should be roughly the same amount of draft capital, just it would be coming from 2 different places as opposed to one place.
Here's the thing. I'm thinking of all those different stories we've all read about behind-the-scenes craziness that happens on draft night with multiple trades, right? If, let's say they go 1 to 4 with Chris Ballard and the Colts in the days before the draft, okay? They go ahead and take the very best offer they can. And then they're sitting at 4 on draft night. As the draft is developing, they realize that they're okay with the guy they'd take at 4 or the guy they'll take at 7 because they start to have a feel of what's going to happen at 5 and 6. And then 7 is going crazy. Like, no, we want to get to 4. We want to go ahead and get that guy. Stroud's going to be gone by the time we get to the Raiders. We want to jump to 4 and get him. You might get more on draft night. And
more again, insurance. It's certainty. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you hey, we'll move down, but we're going to move down incrementally because we want to be sure the draft keeps falling our way to be sure that we end up with our guy at that top spot. And it's also, it's like, it's kind of like investing. Like, you want to diversify your assets a little bit. So, like, if you trade with Indy and you get their future first, and then you trade from 4 to 7 and you get some Vegas picks, now you don't only have draft capital from one team.
Either one of them sucks and you're sitting pretty.
Right. In case you give up, in case Bryce Young is amazing, he becomes Joe Burrow, and now you've acquired draft picks from a team with an awesome quarterback, you would want to diversify your assets a little bit. So that makes sense to me.
Great stuff on the text line from a ton of listeners thinking about how we do this, you know, and what they would do. A bunch of people like this. This is fun to think about, this opportunity.
And that's why we wanted to do this, because, and it's, by the way, it's why getting the number 1 pick was so valuable, because you really can control the whole thing based on where you're at. And yes, of course, these are all hypotheticals. We don't know if these offers are going to really be on the board, and mock drafts are just that at this point. But if Ryan Poles said, my left tackle of the future is in this draft, I'd be comfortable with him trading down further than 4 as long as he came away with that guy at that position. Because if you're taking defense, and this is my offensive bias coming in, you need to get the best guy. But if you're taking offense, like, I'm okay with you taking a guy that is more of a supporting cast role, because in theory you've got Justin Fields that elevates the other guy. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't want to take Skoronski if his arms are going to make him turn into a guard at some point.
No, you do not want to be drafting a guard.
You can't take a pick that ends up being a guard.
I agree with you, but like, so like if they take defense, what I'm saying is, like, I want it to be Carter or Anderson. If they take offense, and it's obviously a non-quarterback, it feels like you can go a little bit lower in the draft in order to get that guy because quarterbacks will be overdrafted and those top defensive players are going to be up there. So I think it's stay in the top 10, come out of there with at least one extra first. And if you move down all the way to 7 or 9, you're probably coming out of there with multiple extra firsts.
Man, it's so much hinges on some different news items. Is Derek Carr going to the Jets? That limits the Aaron Rodgers possibilities, and maybe he does go to Vegas. Does Rodgers emerge from darkness and stay in Green Bay? We'll see what hat he's wearing, if he can even see the logos there in the darkness. I want Vegas to want a quarterback. I don't want Vegas to get one of those guys. I don't want Vegas to get Rodgers.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're not getting Carr.
No.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want as many teams in the top 10
quarterback hungry
to still need a quarterback. That's right. Texter says, Danny, why does nobody talk about the Bears trading with Houston for 2 and 12? I would make that trade immediately. That's according to the trade value chart. It costs less than the 12th overall pick to move up from 2 to 1.
So they don't have to give it up.
They don't have to give up 12.
But if you could fleece them, if you could scare them,
maybe.
And you could scare Cal McNair. You'd scare Nick Caserio and say, like, oh, no, we're going to make this deal with Indy, and they're going to take Bryce Young. You better come up and get it.
Yeah, and the only way we're doing it is for the 12th pick. I mean, yeah, that would be considered an overpay by all the draft value charts that are out there. But, yeah, that'd be awesome because then you could take your best – you could take Anderson or Carter or trade down from 2 to wherever again and pick up that – and then at 12, you are in the range to draft a receiver.